Hello and welcome back to another one of my presentations. Today we are going to be talking about the effects of pedometers on physical activity and obesity. This first slide is a general introduction to the presentation, which we are going to be looking at the problems of physical inactivity, how technology can play a significant role in getting people more physically active and healthy. Currently, there is a national health crisis that is heavily linked to physical inactivity, obesity, and many other harmful diseases. As the world is advancing, there are many technological devices that can aid the population to achieve health and wellness goals. One of these devices, which is arguably one of the most popular, is the one that we're going to be looking at in this presentation, and this device is the pedometer. So what is the pedometer? Pedometer simply means step counter, and pedometers are a device, usually portable and electronic or electromechanical, that counts each step that a person takes. Now, on the right side of the screen, you can see a couple examples. There's pedometers that clip onto your belt, that you can hold in your hand, that go on your watch, and there's even pedometers built into some people's phones. So, as the name suggests, pedometers are designed to detect vertical movement at the hip, which helps it measure the number of steps that you take throughout the day. It also can provide an accurate estimate of your distance walked, walking pace, and the stride between each step. Pedometers help people set fitness goals and keep track of their progress. Now, the problem with physical inactivity. Physical activity is a major problem in America. Nearly 40% of Americans, adults aged 20 and over, are obese, and 71.6% of adults aged 20 and over are overweight, including obesity. Now, what is the correlation here? The correlation is that physical inactivity or a sedentary lifestyle is one of the main reasons that people become overweight or obese, alongside other harmful lifestyle choices such as eating unhealthily. Obesity is linked to various serious health issues such as diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and many other cardiovascular issues and health complications. It is crucial to get the population physically active, and technologies such as pedometers can be a step forward in achieving these goals. Now, research study 1 is called Using Pedometers to Increase Physical Activity and Improve Health. This study looked to find if pedometers were actually useful in motivating adults to exercise on a daily basis and see if there was an association between their use and changes in body weight, lipid levels, blood sugar levels, and high blood pressure. There were 2,767 participants, which were split into a control group and an experimental group, which the experimental group were the users of pedometers. After 18 weeks of tracking step data, the pedometer users increased their steps per day by about 2,491 steps more than the control participants did. Overall, pedometer users increased their physical activity by 26.9% over their baseline. An important predictor of increased physical activity was having step goals such as 10,000, because those who had set these goals were more likely to reach it and become more physically active over this time period. Pedometer users significantly decreased their body mass by 0.38% per person and significantly decreased their systolic blood pressure by 3.8. And the results of this study suggest that the use of pedometer is associated with significant increase in physical activity and significant decreases in body mass index and blood pressure. Now, on to reference 2, which is titled A 10-Week Pedometer-Based Walking Program Induced Weight Loss and Improved Metabolic Health in Community-Dwelling Adults. The purpose of this study was to evaluate the effects of a 10-week pedometer-based walking intervention on physical activity measured by daily steps, weight loss, and metabolic health in overweight and obese adults in a suburban community setting. There were 34 overweight and obese individuals that took part in this trial, where they walked for 10 weeks and were emphasized to track physical activity through their pedometer use. These participants reported a baseline of only 2806 steps per day per daily average, which is below a sedentary baseline. And after being given the pedometer, their week 1 averages already skyrocketed up to 8,679 steps. By week 10, these participants walked 24% more than they did in week 1, with an average of 10,766 by the end of the trial. There was an average of 1 kilogram lost per participant after the 10 weeks, with 4 participants losing over 5% of their initial body weight by the end of the trial, and BMI was lowered by an average of 0.5 per participant throughout the entire study. There were also significant improvements in fasting blood glucose and systolic blood pressure, which you can see in the table in the top right of the screen. And there's a couple other measured results which were not as significant. The third and final research study that I found was titled, "Does a 6-month pedometer intervention improve physical activity and health among vulnerable African Americans? A feasibility study." Now, the primary purpose of this study was to examine the outcomes of a 6-month pedometer-determined physical activity intervention and how it would have an effect on African American population, which is described as vulnerable by the researchers. Now, this is because African American adults actually have the highest age-adjusted prevalence of obesity of about 49.9%, which is pretty much half of the adult population of African Americans. Now, participants wore a pedometer for 6 months and recorded their daily step count each day, and height, weight, body fat percentage, waist circumference size, blood pressure, lipid levels, glucose levels, and other pieces of data that were also measured in this study before and after the trial to measure the differences. The study found that there were overall significant improvements in waist circumference by 1.45 inches, systolic blood pressure by 4.32, which is a lot, and HDL cholesterol by 7.89. And there was one major issue that the researchers found with the participants is that motivation proved to be a problem over the prolonged trial, and only 36 participants actually averaged the goal of 10,000 or more steps per day by month 6, which negatively affected the results of the trial. Now you can see 2 graphs on the right side of the slide. The bottom graph shows what percent of individuals completed how many steps per month, and as you see in the final stage, there was a sort of drop-off between those who were achieving the full goals, and this affected the overall results of the study because the changes were not as significant as they could have been if everyone applied themselves and reached the goal that was set by the researchers. Now, what are the potential solutions for the problems with physical inactivity and obesity that have been brought up throughout this presentation? First, we must ask the question, how is technology improving the health outcomes that we're looking for? So technologies such as pedometers are showing to improve health outcomes by encouraging people to walk and exercise more, which has positive effects on their health, such as lowered risk for cardiovascular disease, heart disease, stroke, and heart failure, 13 types of cancers, and dementia, and this was found in study 2 by Mokhtar, 2019. Now, these claims are backed up by the evident improvements in physical activity, which were seen in the first study that we looked at, which showed pedometer users increased their physical activity by 26.9% over the baseline, which was by Bravata in 2017. And with the improvements of physical activity came improvement to people's weights. So study 2 showed that multiple participants lost over 5% of their initial body weight, and after 10 weeks, and all the participants together lowered their BMI by an average of 0.5 point per person. So more physical activity means less people that are obese and more healthy individuals in our country. In conclusion, the role of technology in achieving our everyday health goals can be quite tricky, because while technology may be one of the main things to blame when it comes to the sedentary lifestyle of many Americans, who many of which would rather stay in on their phones, watching Netflix, YouTube shows, playing video games, or even simply working on their computers instead of going outside and exercising, technology can also play a vital role in getting people back on track to becoming more physically active and healthy. Now, for this to happen, motivation is a key factor for becoming physically active, because once you stop, you will revert back to your less healthy state which you were before. This was especially evident in study 3, where only 36% of participants maintained the goal of 10,000 steps per day by month 6 of the trial, and showed much more physical improvement than those who did not, by Zollner in 2010. In order for the problem of sedentary lifestyles and obesity to be solved in America, the country needs to motivate people to exercise more and have people make better use of the technologies to become more physically active, such as using pedometers and other, exercising apps that are going around these days to inspire them to become more physically active and healthy as a society. Thank you for coming and listening to my presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the content in the presentation, feel free to reach out and ask me. Here you can find my references page, which has the links to the 3 research studies that I used in my presentation, in case you want to look further into the studies yourself. And once again, thank you for coming to my presentation, and I really hope you enjoyed it.